Good morning, y'all. One of these crazy hair days, as you guys can see. Well, as you can tell, we've had already on multiple occasions opportunity to, I suppose, initiate what it is that is pretty much the motive behind. Essentially, anytime I've worked on a particular video or touched on a particular topic or simply just dramatized a particular matter into a story, into something that essentially made you believe like it's a part of my life, or it's part of me, or it's my moment and I'm welcoming you, including you, or simply not withholding something from you. Well, essentially these are just aspects of our self-growth, self-management, marker points to see where we're at. And then also, it's like a moment. Take a moment to smell the roses, to give yourself credit for the circumstances, the moment, the situations, the things you've gotten through, and the things you're headed towards, And so it's like suppose you could say counting your eggs, you're counting your chickens, or and it's something like in the matter, or simply just knowing that those are things to look forward to, or to kind of see that you're gonna be having to handle. So you might as well start practicing something of that, or in that direction. And so and that's kind of how it's about life, day to day, we wake up and we gotta pretty much find for ourselves a topic of matter, an approach, a direction, a way to not only handle it but navigate through it. So essentially, one thing for myself, I know I kind of got obsessed with a particular perspective that a lot of people always find so easy to dramatize, and not only that, but to draw attention to it. So essentially, to kind of touch on that matter, it's like this morning, I've awoken, I like to think that I should feel grateful every morning. It's the moment I wake up. My eyes opened up, my breath returned, or my conscience awareness to the rhythm of my existence, or in other words, it's just kind of trying to do things differently, and to do things differently, you gotta do things different. And we're so used to, like, I know the way, I know the path, I know the I've already been taught, I've already been shown, I've already done this before. So we attempt to and that by that have a standard, or have already some goal in mind towards a particular or rival of a standard. So well, let's put it like this. So where I was kind of touching with this matter is the idea and the belief of us creating for ourselves what we call problems, and it's not that they're problems, it's just that we were raised, to go to school, to solve and look for things that are not correct, or not exactly at their tip top shape, or performing to their maximum potential. But there's room there for not only someone to go ahead and insert themselves, but also to capture out of that something that is a perspective of a matter that then provides you another way to provide what is into the matter, now a different input, and thus well, working on the outcome, and a different output. So essentially, we're raised and taught this particular aspect of ourselves that tells us you can figure it out, you can find an answer. Not only can you figure it out and find an answer, but you're so good that before I even give you answers, I'm going to give you problems and watch you find that, and probably not even give yourself credit. Because most people seem to not find that being something worthy to say it's a particular skill, keeps you creative, keeps you attentive, keeps you, willing to make a difference to yourself and see yourself also making a difference. So, this is a way of life for us. This is a way that we are. We just naturally tuned into this, And anywhere and anything we do, we're constantly looking for the problem in a matter, And essentially because we were taught that we can be fixers, we can be solvers, we can be, the ones who find new solutions to a particular, a problem. And so with that, then you think about how we live the rest of our life. It's constantly, if I was raised to be a problem solver and go around looking for problems to solve. And then as humans, we get into adult mode, and that particular aspect is like the whole point of growing me up and conditioning me to be a student, and know the concept of student and teacher, so eventually the teacher in himself can awaken and recognize and call this matter to be magnified to us. So now, I look back and I see like the days that I've woken up, and the way I approach them all constantly, like, I know myself, I was like, problem this, problem that. Let's make this a problem. Let's make that a problem. And, essentially it's nothing a problem. It's more of a, how can we play with things that we've already been shown, no matter how great they are, we can make them be any way and anyhow in a perspective of matter, because that's essentially what we're taught, is how to know the ins and outs of what essentially brings you the dynamics of teacher and student. So now I look back at my videos and I'm like, okay, it makes sense, So at the very bottom of me, or at the very center of probably a aspect of what has been instilled in me to be adopted by me as a majority or a big part of what I'll call character or personality, or the building up of oneself. So and in that right there, it's like, all right, so I constantly approached myself and the matters that I brought to my attention in this way, as a student, approaching a teacher, bringing his work to the teacher, counting and depending on the teacher to be able to overlook, because the teacher already knows what the curriculum's all about. So essentially, it's being willing to not only step from being a student, but stepping into the teacher's shoes and giving the teacher a different point of view of me, because so far he's more used to the students, So when he all of a sudden gets to view the teacher, the whole point is to be able to stand out and readily, I'd say, more on one's own, I suppose, what is being put as an example, and so. But basically, it's understanding this structure, this construct that we're raised in, and we're raised to be this person that then somehow, when society, like, I know I played this part where I wanted to be a victim, play a victim and act like a victim, or at least convince you well enough that I was, in that mindset. And so, in that perspective, when we switch that off there, and then we get back to just the management of things, it goes, this problem solver mentality, this constant looking in everything to find problem. And not only that, but then when we actually like embody this and we are actually out there being this, now because remember, there's two phases, there's that student that's that problem solver, and then there is the guy that becomes, that person that just is conditioned and supposedly loses interest in wanting to manage their impulses, and instead they're constantly, anywhere you go, you'll hear them talking about a problem, trying to solve a problem, and pretty much wanting you to awaken to that problem. The way we look at it is like, that's not my problem, but essentially it's anybody's problem is everybody's problem, but our thing is that we try to remove ourselves from someone else's, and someone else's from ourselves, and essentially it doesn't really so much always work out, because to the detriment of the matter feels like, well, the things that are supposed to be working together to manage me, and now they're not working together. So it's like, are they not managing me? It's in some way. So that's the matter. Just kind of, if again, us being the creative beings that we are, we can give it initially, dialogue, and thus it's like turning unanimated into animated, might have not been the exact terminology that I wanted to use, but it still kind of made the point. I'd say you could see what I meant. So essentially, yeah. So now it kind of brings me back to this person myself. It's this problem of self. So how come if reality raised me this way, and then I'm out there in reality and with society talking about problems, anything that I might see, problematic, and wanting to raise that, Not only because in myself, if it's being risen, then it's probably to see if it might be risen in others, and if it isn't risen in others, then it won't be risen necessarily in the same way in me, so it's like saying, if I go around talking about problems, not everybody's gonna believe those, those words or those beliefs, as opposed to if I go around someone and again, I talk about problems, and they themselves are only looking at solutions, so they're entertained by it because they're just seeing the solutions, while the person who is, not able to see the solutions and just hears the words and the characterization or the acting or the performing carrying on, they're more driven by probably the pull that they have on their heart, on their emotional, physical state of being, so when they're hearing that, they can probably be drawn to tune into it, and thus by that standard decide to not want to be there, feel that, or experience that, so decide to pretty much, go the other way or remove themselves from the situation. But essentially, it goes like, basically where I'm at is education and being a problem solver and schizophrenia the direct results of being educated into a problem solver? Because like I pushed myself into the schizophrenic experience by my own standard, and to me, it was just like being at school all day, having someone constantly show up and tell you, hey, do you know what 5 times 10 is? And then you're like, somewhere in the fives, I'd say. Wrong! But essentially, all that there is there. And, if it doesn't become about me arriving at being a teacher or getting too concentrated or stuck or focused on my goal, then I can have fun with it, and if I can have fun with it, then, it becomes of a plaything, so I could see the difference between making it to a goal and being not exactly so focused, let's just say, on the intent that's actually carrying that moment. So essentially, again, being this problem solver, it kind of makes me wonder, like, was it basically me just reverting back to the educated student self, that is turned schizophrenic, or is it being the student in that rather than the teacher, and not letting yourself see it or forgetting it, and so you become into this like state of yourself that doesn't recognize itself, so it goes around like thinking that maybe others should be able to provide insight to help that realignment, of that person. So that's where I'm at the matter at the moment, and I just thought I'd share this perspective with y'all. Hopefully it was entertaining, and hopefully it was able to enlighten y'all in some way on yourselves, on your experience, but for the most part, I appreciate your guys' time, especially if you're taking the time to, hopefully actually incorporate, what it is out of this, into your actuality of useful information, But like I said, to me, I like to think it's all useful and it's all a pleasure to be with. So thanks for you guys' time, and you guys have a great and wonderful great rest of the day. A great and wonderful rest of the day. Wow, I get tongue tied when I say that. It's so hot. All right, y'all. Have a good day.